Well, it sure doesn't look like the studios of WEIU television, does it? No, it doesn't. And that's because we are on the road today for this episode of the Paw Report. We traveled to the beautiful Lake Shelbyville in Shelbyville, Illinois, and we're joined today by pro fishing guide Ken Wilson to talk about, well, what else? How to fish. Thank you so much for joining us today and meeting us here at beautiful Lake Shelbyville.
Well, Kelly, thanks for joining me, and what a great day we got today on the water. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better day.
I told Ken, I said, we're filming here in the summertime, and for the last, it seems like 2 months, it's rained in central Illinois, and what a beautiful day that we received here today. How did you get started, Ken, in fishing? This is your job, this is your life. You get to the water just about every day when you can.
Yeah, this is my office, as you can see. It's pretty nice, but how I got started, it was back, probably 20 years ago. I decided I was going to do a little fishing guide service, and it just kind of blew up from there. And we went to, a friend of mine got me into the marina, Lithia Springs Marina, and that's how I got through guiding through the marina. But after that, we had another guide over there that name was Walter Watson. He passed away, so I became the full-time fishing guide out of the marina. So that really helps with business and things like that.
How do you learn the water? I mean, you have been here to Lake Shelbyville for many, many years. You can probably tell us. But how do you learn the water? How do you learn what's underneath?
Well, we got a lot of good electronics. As we'll go through today, I'll show you some electronics that we use, and it's always good to have good electronics. And they're like computers; they just keep getting better and better and better and faster. So the old days is gone about how you just dropped the rope down and found how deep it was, and it's all gone. So it's not too bad today.
For those that don't really know what a guide is, what a guide does, how do you work with clients? You've had clients from all over the United States. Take us through your job. Take us out of your office and onto the water, and what you do and how you work with people on the water.
Well, first of all, we have people that come from all over the United States to visit the Lake Shelbyville area, and they're looking to go out and have a good time and do some fishing. And usually in the summer months, the kids are out of school and they got their kids on vacation, and so that kind of helps too with business. But most of all, it's just people wanting to learn how to fish and take some fish home.
Is fishing easy? I am a fisherman. I've been doing it all my life. That's what my dad taught me to do as a youngster, and I try to go out as much as I can. There are techniques, but I think some people think I'm just not patient enough to fish. They want to drop that line down and they want immediate results. That's just not necessarily how it works all the time.
No, it's not. And you'll find out today. We'll do a little segment on some fishing, but it takes some patience. Sometimes they bite right off the bat and sometimes they don't. So the main thing is finding the fish. And a lot of times Mother Nature will let you know where the fish are at by the gulls diving in on the bait fish. And you just got to be observant when you're out there.
We're here at Lake Shelbyville. Lots of species of fish in Lake Shelbyville. We're going to talk a lot about crappie today, maybe some bass, maybe some walleye, but there's some other species in the waters here. Tell us about what kind of fish are out there, and maybe some of the biggest ones and the smallest ones.
Okay, well, a lot of the things we go after is the crappie is our main squeeze, and we'll go after the walleye too, but my boat is set up for crappie fishing, as you'll see later, but the length limits on the crappie are 10 inches, get 10 over 10 inches and 5 under 10 inches per person. So, and the walleye's got to be 14 inches and 6 per person. And it gives you a pretty good creel to take home with you, especially if you got a partner going with you. So it gets you enough fish for a fish fry.
Are there muskies out in these waters? When we came in, a lot of people fishing on the other side of the dam, and
right.
I guess folklore has it that's where the muskies reside. Big fish.
Big fish, and they are big fish. Our muskie population in the lake has diminished, but they have been with the new stocking program they're putting some more in. But there's still a lot of fish below the spillway that they catch. They're not the fish of 10,000 casts anymore. It's the fish of 100 casts maybe.
Oh boy!
So they work them over pretty good below the spillway. But I think a lot of our fish have went through the spillway and that's their residence now, so they can't get back up through there. So.
Before we head out on the water today, it's important to make sure that you got all the right equipment. You're set up as a guide, but you know, folks come out here and launch, and they do it by themselves. It is important to have the right tackle. Give us just a quick laundry list of what we need to have before we head out to make sure A, we catch fish, and B, we're safe.
Well, first of all, you got to have your life jackets. That's the main thing. You want to have them either on or close by or stored where you can get to them pretty easy. Fire extinguisher, you got to have that. And then, of course, your tackle, bait, gas, and make sure your batteries are all charged. You don't want to be out there with dead batteries. There's a checklist I go through in the morning and make sure everything's ready to roll.
What gives you the most joy about fishing? You love to talk about fishing. You're good at it. What gives you the most pleasure to decide that you're going to spend your days doing that?
Well, you gotta love it. Everybody's asked me the same question about it. Do you ever get tired of fishing? And I say, no, I don't get tired of fishing, but I get tired of not catching fish sometimes because you get out there and you don't catch a lot some days, and some days you do. So those days are worse than others. But all in all, I don't know how you couldn't enjoy something like this. We're out there every day.
It's pleasurable. It's relaxing.
It's relaxing. It takes a lot of stress off. But there is a lot of stress in me, and I've got to keep the people happy. And 80% of my business is return business. So, if they're not catching fish, they're not coming back.
That's right. Well, speaking of catching fish, we've spent enough time here on land. I'm ready to hop on the water and not only catch some fish, but see what we've got on the boat and see exactly what we need to do to catch some slabs, as they say.
All right. I can't wait. See you get one on. Thank you.
That's right.
Today we're going to be fishing the Sand Creek area, and we'll be targeting crappie at 18 to 19 feet of water. And as you can see, all these little spots here, this is all zooplankton. This is what they feed on when they come out for spawn. They're not real aggressive right now, so they can't chase the shad down like they want to, so they'll feed on this stuff until they get real healthy, and then they'll start feeding on shad. Here comes another one on the screen right here. This is what they're feeding on right here. This is not bait fish. Bait fish is down in here. And right here is their thermocline, and you can actually see the thermocline start to come up off the bottom. We've had all this rain, the current has taken the thermocline off the bottom, and then it kind of raises it up. So there's no oxygen below this level right here, so all the fish is going to be right in that area right there. So. Where's that clockwise? Clockwise. And then you just leave that other hook in the pole. Grab your minnow, and I put 3 fingers here and hold on to the rod. Grab your minnow. Got the camera going? Minnow goes the hook goes right up underneath the chin there. Keeps him alive. And take your next hook. Grab you another minnow. Right through the chin. Same way. Now there's going to be a few twists in your rod, so you just go one way until it comes undone. And right there, if it's got a little bit, you always want to pull your line. It's got see up. It's not really free. Just take it, slap it on the water, and it comes right out. And for our depth, we're going to hold our arms all the way up until our swivel is to the surface, and give it one pull like that. And set it back in the rod holder. Repeat. I want to give this one pull, and then just a little half a pull. Sometimes that little half pull makes a difference. We got our speed set. We're running 0.08, which is fine. That's pretty close. We should be getting a bite here too. This is what the problem is when you see the floating debris. A lot of that stuff gets on your line when you got high water. So you got to keep an eye out for that grass. So actually we're going to be running 2, 4, 6, or 2, 4, 6, 8. See, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 minnows, almost a dozen minnows at a time. If you had your third pole in, we'd be running a dozen. So it takes a lot of bait to do this technique. This technique is called spider rigging. Which it looks like a spider going down the lake with all the rods sticking out. That's kind of how it gets its name. Okay, I'm here. And hopefully the fish will cooperate and get on there.
I hope so.
If the fish gods are good to us today, we'll catch something. Some days you don't, some days you do. There's most of the days we don't go home without anything. We got something in the line.
All right, we made it out on the water here at Lake Shelbyville in Shelbyville, Illinois with pro fishing guide Ken Wilson. And we're continuing our interview now. We're on the water and we want to find out what it takes to catch a few nice slabs. So Ken, first thing, we got on the boat. How do you know where to go, or what are the best places to go specifically for crappie? This time of year we're shooting at the end of June. Are the crappie up near the banks, in brush, near docks, or have they migrated back out into deeper water?
Kelly, that's a good question. Everybody asks that too, because this time of year, everybody thinks they should be up on the bank with everything flooded, but right now they're post-spawn fish. So they're out here suspended and they're feeding on, zooplankton and some small minnows or whatever they can get a hold of until they get healthy enough to get out here on the main lake and chase shad around. So the Sand Creek area is a good area where we're in because it's a big spawning area.
Now, how deep do you suggest? Again, it's going to depend on time of year. How deep are we fishing today? How deep, and how do you determine that?
Well, water level has a lot to do with that. But today we drove through here and we've seen them anywhere from 15 to 18 feet on our electronics. So we try to target that in that area, and we've seen that there is a thermocline developing, and they're not going to be below that. So, we can kind of judge about where we want our baits at. And you just got to know how much line to put out.
Your rods are not your typical rods that you would take out to just any lake. They're a little bit longer. How long? 9 to 15 feet. And then talk about your the spider rig that you've got on the line today.
Right. Our rods are Ozark rods. They're 14 footers. These are the small ones. We got 16 footers when the water clears up a little bit to get it away from the boat. And we got a 2 jig rig on there with 2 minnows on each pole, and they call this spidering. It looks like a spider going down through the lake with all the poles out. And on a Corps of Engineer lakes, you can run 3 rods apiece. Site-specific lakes where they got it marked, state lakes, you can only run 2 lakes in the state of Illinois. So you got to keep an eye on that. And other lakes, Kentucky Lake and other lakes, you can run as many rods as you want. Mississippi lakes are 4. Kentucky Lake, there's no limit on rods. So that's kind of a controversy thing about how many rods to have. It doesn't matter what limit it is. A limit, how fast you get it doesn't matter. As long as you stay by the rules and measure your fish and keep everything in check.
Ken, we're fishing today with the spider rig, as you mentioned, and it's a 2 or 3 ring swivel, kind of a contraption where you've got one line going out a little bit shorter and then the deeper line. What is the benefit to having one line a little higher, one line a little bit lower? What's the technique there?
Well, what it is called is the Caps and Coleman rig. They were the one that invented it. They were big tournament fishermen, and they just kind of caught on to all fishermen, and they're making quite a bit of money on it. But all it is a half-ounce sinker in the middle of 2 with a 3-way swivel and 2 leads off of it. And when you pull it through the water, the 2 leads go back, and this sinker's in the middle, so it looks like there's a school of bait fish swimming. So that's the whole key. You want to imitate the bait fish in schools like we're doing here.
Fish can see, right? Crappie can see, and they can see on top of them and below them.
Right. Not so much below them, but if their eyes sit up on top of their head, so if they see something go above them, within striking distance, they're going to take advantage of it. But below them, they won't go down much to go after bait. So you want to stay above them a little bit.
What's the difference, or what's the benefits to using live bait versus, artificial lures? Today you threw a dozen minnows on the poles today. Benefits?
Well, it makes it more tempting for the fish to think they're going to get a better meal if they just hit. Sometimes they'll hit both minnows on the pole. It just makes it more attractive. Coming through the water looks like a little school bait coming. So it's more of a reaction bite than it is a feeding bite sometimes.
But when you compare live bait versus lures, you as a professional fisherman, do you prefer one or the other, or do you use one or the other depending on the situation you're fishing in?
It depends on situations. Most of the time we use live bait, and sometimes we'll tie jigs on these instead of the hooks and then tip it with a minnow just for a little more vibration or something to attract them a little better.
What about colors? Do colors vary if you're using lures? I've always read chartreuse is the color. White's right up there with it. Do you find that there's a benefit to that?
Yeah, chartreuse is a real good color. It's a go-to color. White's always a good color. We use a lot of a blue ice kind of a color. And they got one called monkey milk. It's kind of a whitish, creamish looking color. Then they've got one is called electric chicken. It's a purple and a pink, and it's all different kind of colors. I think a lot of it is some of the colors they haven't seen, and they come up with a different color, and that's what they bite on sometimes. They get tired of seeing the same color. So if you're out there jig fishing, you want to switch colors. If you quit getting bites, sometimes you'll get a couple more bites.
We're actually doing what's called trolling today. So you've got the poles in the water. We're monitoring them as I'm keeping an eye on them to see if they move. You do.
Yeah, you just had a bite over there.
Oh, great! Just had a bite. Talk about trolling, what it involves, how you get it all set up. Your techniques, if any. Do I have a fish over there? You're eyeballing it.
Yeah,
do I?
No, he was biting it, but he wasn't taking it.
Trolling versus, you also do some casting. So let's talk about trolling first, and then casting. Any techniques you can provide us with that?
The trolling part is pretty simple. You just set your speed. We're running about 0.08 to 0.7 mile per hour into the wind, and then when we turn with the wind, sometimes we got to drift instead of using a trolling motor because it's a little too fast. But as far as casting goes, right now is a good time to cast the brush for bass. We just had a fisherman pull up a while ago and told us they weren't doing very good up shallow, so that tells me I better stay out here in the deeper waters. So
let's talk. Let's go back to just crappie fishing in general. And when is the best time to fish? Not so. Any fisherman will say any month of the year is the best time to fish, but I know for crappie it's different. And you can fish throughout the winter. But where the fish lie on lakes, different times of year, when they spawn, etc.
Right, spring is probably the best time to catch a lot of fish, and the fall is a real good time to catch bigger fish. My favorite time is the winter time fishing because there's not a lot of boat traffic, and then you get some nice days out here where you're by yourself out here, and there's fish are schooled up nice on ledges out here on the main lake, and you can get your limit pretty quick before you get cold, hopefully.
What's the best technique that you can share with us? Trolling, you see a bite, your rod flickers a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, should you immediately get up and get the pull out of the rod, or what? How for the novice person, what should you tell them?
Well, what I tell them is, everybody's always fished with a cork, and it's kind of like watching a cork. Your rod will just kind of tap a little bit, then all of a sudden it goes down. Same thing with a cork, so it's easy for people to relate to that.
When I was a kid, Dad always put the bobber on my line. As I got older, I thought it wasn't cool to fish with the bobber, but that's not the case. Bobbers are okay to fish with. It doesn't matter your skill level.
Bobbers are great to fish with. During the summertime, a lot of people target brush piles out here on the main lake, and they'll use a lot of bobbers with heavy weights to get down into the brush. And because what happens is the water gets so hot and the boat traffic gets tremendous out here, they'll just go into somewhere hiding, so they're not out here on the main lake anymore. So and then the mornings and the evenings is the best time to come out because they'll get out of their little sanctuary and we can catch them trolling.
Mm-hmm. There has to be advice for those folks out there that have maybe never been fished a few times, versus that person that is the more experienced, goes all the time fisherman. So you work with a lot of people all year round. What's the best advice that you could give to the novice and to the experienced?
Well, to the novice is be patient. You know, that's the main thing. You've got to have patience when you're fishing. A lot of people don't have that, and you're not going to catch a lot of fish if you don't have patience. They're not going to bite all the time. Enjoy the surroundings if you're out here. You know, that's one of the things Mother Nature put this out here for us to enjoy. So that makes a great trip. For the professional or the almost professional fisherman, is just you know, get your electronics. Electronics plays a big part in what we do nowadays. The trolling motors are all automatic. You know, whenever you step up in your equipment, usually the wife has something to say about that, especially if you're not taking people out. But anyway, yeah, it's all about electronics anymore, and they've got a new, it's called a live scope Garmin come out with. You can actually see the fish hit the bait, which is my next investment when the price comes down a little bit, but we'll talk about that later. But other than that, you know, just enjoy the day, you know, have fun.
You've been doing this a long time, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. You've probably got some fishing stories over there. You know, everybody's got a fishing story. Some of your most memorable, maybe it's people, maybe it's fish, maybe it's the weather didn't play so nice. I'd like to hear a couple of your fish stories.
Well, one of my best stories is it happened right in this area in Sand Creek. We were trolling for white bass and walleye, and we had a young man on here. He was about 12 years old, and his dad, and he was reeling in a really nice white bass. And all of a sudden his other pole takes off. So he throws the pole he has in his hand in the lake to grab the other pole. I said, "Did you just know what you did?" And he looked at me. He said, "Yeah, I just know what I did, but I think I messed up." I said, "Yeah." So I threw a buoy marker out. We always carry a buoy marker with us. Threw a buoy marker out, and we got some treble hooks with a little weight on it. We cast it around for about 10 minutes, and his dad says, "I think I got something." And he reels up, and I seen the line come up. So I grabbed the line, and I pulled up the line, and I brought up the pole, and I reeled all the line up, and the fish was still on the pole, and we got everything back. It was a good situation, but that's one of the best stories.
That's a fish story.
It is, and nobody would have believed it, but there was a guy sitting right next to us, watched the whole thing. He goes, "I would have never believed that you guys found that pole." And the fish still be on it.
Oh my gosh.
But it was a good story.
What about a fish story for you? Something that you were involved in. Maybe it's a fish you caught. Maybe it's one that you like to tell all of the folks that you bring on your boat.
Probably it was the big catfish that we caught. I set the hook on the fish. It was we were crappie fishing, and it was on a 10-foot Ozark rod, which I'm not sponsored by Ozark, but they're good rods. But anyway, I set the hook, and I said, "I think I'm snagged." So I shook it around, and all of a sudden my line starts moving, and I think, "Oh, I think it's a fish." So we fought it around and fought it around. And you know, this went on for 15 minutes. I said, "My arm's getting tired. Anybody else want to fight it?" And we fought the whole thing. It went around and around for an hour and a half, and we finally got it in. It was a giant flathead catfish, weighed 52 pounds, and everybody got a piece of him. We all fought him, and it was just amazing. That's probably one of the best stories that I've hooked, you know, and landed. You know, it was a pretty good story. But everybody, we had people watching us. I mean, it had 6 or 7 boats around us because we were been out there fighting him all this time. And
they like to roll.
And they roll, yeah. And he fought us hard, and it was amazing. Uh-oh. I think we got a bite. Oh. Nope, false alarm. But it was amazing that we even got him in. And we were using 6-pound test line and small jig.
Where else do you like to fish? You know, you spend a lot of your time on Lake Shelbyville, but I'm sure that you sometimes head off the water here.
There we go, right off. It never happens right on camera, does it?
Well, one of these takes it will.
How do they do that?
They know we're filming.
Oh,
he's got one. We can go over there.
Yeah, he got one. Looks like a white bass. You asked about our rig and our line, what we're using. We're using 10-pound mono with a 8-pound leader. When we're using a 3-way swivel and Gamakatsu hooks with just a regular minnow, and got a 1/2-ounce sinker in the middle, and then we go to another minnow. And what that does when it goes through the water, these things come back like this, and then it pushes it. We're pushing the bait so it looks like they're swimming. So that's all there is to it.
Now, Ken, you mentioned 10-pound mono. What's the difference between that and maybe a braided line? Is there any benefit to either or?
A braided line doesn't have any stress. Oh, there's one. Okay, go ahead. I got you. It's a big one.
I feel it. Feels like a whale.
There he is. That's good.
Oh, that's a good slab.
Don't reel him all the way up now. Just bring him right to you.
There we go. First fish of the day at Lake Shelbyville.
Hold that. Give you some light a little bit. We don't want to lose him. There we go.
He's on there good.
Wow. He hit both minnows. See, he had both of them in his mouth. He had one in his mouth and he went after the other. Okay, drop your rod tip. There you go. And there's a nice Lake Shelbyville crappie. We just need a few more of those for supper.
We need a few more in the well, Ken.
We'll put him right in here. And he'll be happy. That was a good one.
Kelly, we got one on camera.
All right, that's good.
Good job. We're done. Just kidding.
Well, I got a few more questions to fire off at Ken.
I'm just joking. That was fun. It's fun to see you guys get it. It's fun to get it on camera.
Yeah. How'd that come out? Did you get it all?
I think I did okay.
All right.
Well, it just means we need another one, so.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, anything's a little bit more time and a little bit more bonus.
He fought pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you reel them up, just reel them up to about right
boat.
there, about
Yep.
sinker eye level, and that's all you got to do, and bring them right to you.
Okay.
A lot of people want to reel them all the way up to the end of the pole, and these poles are 14 foot, and you can't hardly get them off there. It's a long ways up there. That one there was just that one pole, I think.
Okay, Ken, so you spend the majority of your day on Lake Shelbyville, but I bet as an avid fisherman and a pro, you like to sometimes take your boat out of the water and head to some other hot spots around the Midwest, other places you fished, other lakes that maybe are crappie hot spots.
Well, we go to Kentucky Lake. We used to go down there quite a bit, but the Asian carps kind of put a damper on that fishing down there. So we've been going to Mississippi in the spring. That's home of the 3-pound crappie. It's amazing. They have 12-inch limits on their crappie, and it's just a phenomenal fishery. They call them the Big Four. There's Sardis, Grenada, Edna, and Arcabutla. It's all the Big Four. And we go to Lake Washington too, which is a good oxbow lake off the Mississippi River. It's just below Greenville, Mississippi.
Okay. I'm going to have you give us a tour of the front of the boat here. How it's set up. Is it usually set up this way? I'm going to have you go over the rods again, the reels, the stands, the bait, the trolling, the monitor down there. Just kind of give us the setup. We're kind of going out of order here, but that's all right.
Well, right now we're using the 3 rod holder, which are spider lock, which these things adjust. Like, depends on what, who we got in the back or who we got front. We just run a rod tip to about a foot off the water, and they're really adjustable. You can spin them either way, up and down. Really nice rod holder. Then we're using the Ozark 14-foot rods. These are the SS rods for trolling. And then we've got a Humminbird 1198C, which is a color screen. Which it'll show us a big screen, or you can go to the maps. It's got maps on it. Or you got side imaging. There's a down scan. It's got all the stuff you need for what you want to look at. There's our side scan, and there's your split screens. You can do a lot of stuff with that. Trolling motor, we're using the Minn Kota Travora. Anyway, what's it say on there? Trevora.
Yeah.
Say that.
That's all right. We don't
Cut
need
that
to
out.
be out.
But anyway, it's a iPilot iLink. The iPilot it just runs on GPS. As you can see, it's doing its thing, and the iLink hooks it into the mapping system of Hummingbird, so they network together. So we can run contours, we can run any depths you want to do, and with the iPilot iLink, I can record our tracks on this remote right here. So if we catch fish on a run, I hit save and it'll bring us right back on the same path. So it takes a lot of thinking out of it. This is an Engel 19 quart cooler, which a lot of people use it for minnow buckets. You can use it for regular coolers, but they work great for minnow buckets. They come with a pump, but I don't use the pump because we don't like hearing that thing running all the time up here. So what we do have is onboard. We got an onboard pump that goes in the back, so we don't have to hear the pump running all the time, and it still keeps them nice and fresh. And it runs off our battery in the back, so we don't have to change batteries all the time.
When we got on board, you had water in there already from the shop that when you got the minnows, but you also added some of the water from the lake. Why is it important to do that?
Well, you want to get the minnows acclimated to There you go.
Oh, it's on there now. It's definitely on there now.
Is he still there?
He's there.
Just lift him on up. You got 14-foot rod. There you go. That's good. Just lift him right to you. There you go. Nice crappie. Don't keep reeling. Just flip it right to you. That was perfect. Good job.
There you go. Nice little slab. Good old slab on Lake Shelbyville. Nice weather, good day. Thanks
Look at that smile. Now that's the smile of a fisher. I'll get him off there for you.
Yeah.
Folks, that's how it's done right there. You just patience. We've been sitting here. Oh, how long have we been here? You know, about a half hour, and we haven't really had a lot of bites, but we're just sitting there patiently doing our thing and caught 2 fish. Some people would have left. With this kind of technique we're doing with trolling, we get to move around a lot.
And you get to see the beautiful countryside and the beautiful lake nature of Lake Shelbyville. It's beautiful out here.
And your hands smell like fish, so you know
That's
you make
good.
fish.
And the dinner plate will too, which is a good thing.
I wish we could get you some more here. You can check. We'll clean them. Oh, I think you got another bite. Yeah, get ready. You're getting all the bites. I must be too deep. Oh, there's. Well, missed him.
Do you like a little more action of the casting? I mean, do you ever get the itch to do that? And
Yeah, I do. I do it in springtime sometimes. It just depends on where the fish are hiding at. If they're up close to the bank, we can't hardly do this too much on the bank. Sometimes the minnows will die on you on the hook, like say something hit it and let go of it. So you want to keep your minnows freshened up. I notice I've been keeping hers a lot fresher than mine have. She's getting more bites. So a lot of times people are wondering why I'm not getting any bites. Well, one of the reasons why your bait's not fresh, it's dead and they're not wanting it. So they're really wanting something that's looking alive. You know, they're not wanting something that's hanging there dead looking. So
any other live bait you can use for crappie, or is minnow the delicacy?
Minnow's usually what we use out here. I mean, you can use night crawlers or whatever you want, but minnow seems to be the bait of choice.
Because they're active.
They're active. They're down there swimming around. It kind of gives them a little more look. If I get it just right, we can see our bait on our screen. We'll see our minnows come across as but it's not picking it up now because I don't have it. It's not underneath there, right?
So if there were larger fish down there, we could spot those too.
Yeah, there's our there's our sinker. See our sinker right there? Let's see if I can raise that and see if it'll move. I might not be picking that one up. Must be picking another one up. It didn't pick it up.
Can you tell us again how big that sinker is? And how do you determine, weight?
It's a 1/2 ounce sinker, which we place it in between the two hooks. And you can use a little heavier or a little lighter, depending on how deep you're fishing and how fast we're moving. You notice when I picked it up to 0.8 mile an hour that we got a couple more bites, so we were probably moving just a little bit too slow, and it pulls the baits up a little higher in the water column. Some days they want it moving pretty good. Some days they don't want it moving at all. You just kind of really slow troll. They dictate what you're going to do the day, just by messing around with speeds.
What about weather? You go out on a rainy day, you go out on a snowy day, you go out on a bright, sunny, beautiful day like we're having today. How does that dictate fishing?
Weather has a lot to do with it. Cold fronts are really bad, in the springtime because they're going to get some weather with them. Cold fronts in the wintertime, we usually can't be out here because they're too cold to be out here. And then in the fall, the cold fronts don't bother them too much. Really, they're really looking for some different things in the fall because they're used to being out here all summer long, in the heat, and then the water's temperature drops because of a cold front, and that usually fires them up to go on a fall bite. So fall fronts are not as bad as any other part of the year. If they say you're going to have a cold front coming in the fall, go fishing. And the barometer has a lot to do with it. I don't like fishing on a steady barometer. A steady barometer is like bluebird days where it's not moving. If the barometer is moving up or down either way, it's always better than a steady barometer. In my opinion, that's just my 2 cents.
But you do want to watch the weather before you head out.
You want to watch the weather. It can make or break your trip. We do carry rain gear on board. We hope we don't have to use them, but I know we won't today. But it seems like this year we've used them more than we have had to do in the past years. So it's always good to be prepared for the worst. And if lightning hits, if you hear thunder, way off in the distance, get packed up and get moving. Because it's coming. Oh, there's one. I think I've got me another crappie for the supper table. Looks like a pretty nice one. These are.
That is a nice one.
These are post-spawn crappie. What we got here is a female that she's already spawned out, and they're getting on the food table. You can tell when you squeeze them. She's already laid her eggs. She has no eggs left in her, so she'd be good for the dinner table. This fish here is about a good average Lake Shelbyville crappie, and we have length limits on the lake, so we're allowed 10 fish over 10 inches and 5 under 10 inches. So when you measure these fish, you want to put them on the board and you want to close their mouth, make sure their mouth's closed and hold them up tight, and you get to pinch the tail, and there's our 10-inch mark right there. So this fish is about 10 3/4, so that's a good over fish. It's got some weight to her. She's starting to heal up from spawn, and she's done her thing. So all right, there's another bite. No, cut camera.
That's a little
It's
dude.
a minnow.
Well, little guys are hungry too.
He hit like a monster when he hit. He liked that little minnow. All right. Well, we got another one on, but I don't think he's very big. He's like the other one. I think
It may be the same one.
I think it was a litter mate to the other one. It must be his brother. But it is a fish, and it's fun to catch him. He'll grow up to be a big one. The fish are smaller over here. See what happened when I start putting fresh bait on, I start getting fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't keep your bait fresh enough, you're not going to get a lot of fish. And this now, I mean, in the spring, it doesn't really matter. They'll hit about anything when they're getting ready to go spawn. They want to get fed up before they get up, go through the ritual, because they don't eat much when they're spawning. And then the fall is a real good time. They feed up for winter time. They'll go on a big feed then.
So you said sometimes you'll put a lure and a minnow like on the...
Yeah, you cut this hook off and just put a jig like this right here. Put the tail on it. Or sometimes you don't need a minnow. Put just a jig. It's always nice to have a little smell on there, something for them. With the new live scope out, I hope when I get one, maybe you guys can come back over and do a segment with the live scope. It'll actually shoot out in front of our 40 feet out in front of our boat, and it'll show all our sinkers and all our lines, and it'll show the fish come up behind it and take the bait or swim off of it. What they've been finding out with this new live scope, that 10% of the fish are that's caught, and 90% of them swim up to the bait and turn off. Yeah, so probably what we've been doing through here, we probably had 20, 30 fish look at our bait, but we only caught a few of them. So, it's the new technology is showing a lot of stuff of what happens. And then on Kentucky Lake, a guy told me the other day, he's got the new live scope, and he said that when you're in Kentucky Lake and you're spider rigging out on the main lake, all of a sudden you'll see these great big fish come up underneath it, and they're on a Asian carp. Their nose are turned up a little bit, and you can actually see what kind of fish it is on there. And they'll just stay right under your boat the whole time, and you won't get a bite. They just congregate under the boat. So that's something new we didn't know. With Asian carp, it's not only them eating the zooplankton, they get under your boat. That's why they jump in your boat. People say they flying carp comes in the boat. That's one of the reasons why they like to get under your boat. For some reason. I don't know if it's because it's just an object up above, they want to get underneath it, or they're just following the minnows. And what is it, a white bass? No, it's a crappie. Nice little crappie, that's a good eater. Right there is a good eating crappie. It's about 9 3/4 inches long. Matter of fact, we'll just measure it right here while we're here.
You said, Ken, we were rolling over a brush pile there.
Yeah, that's 9 1/2. That's a good under crappie for Lake Shelbyville. They want you to take 5 under 10 inches. They'd rather have you take the black crappie out of the lake, because the black crappie are kind of overpopulated right now and they don't grow as much. But we try to mix it up a little bit with the black crappie and the white crappie as far as our under fish go. And this would be an under fish, 9 1/2 inches. So it's under 10 inches. We'll add it to the other one. I think you guys will have a little meal.
Well, it was a first for me today, not fishing, but actually taking the Paw Report on the road to Lake Shelbyville to visit with pro fisherman Ken Wilson and teaching us how to slab those awesome crappie. For this episode of the Paw Report, I'm Kelly Goodwin. Thanks for joining us.